Okay, I'd like to call this meeting to order. Whenever we're going to join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Is anyone here for public comment? Our track record stands at none. We'll move right to student recognition. Mr. Loomis, sir.
Sure. So with us here tonight, we have our valedictorian and our salutatorian. We have our valedictorian, David DeChaliant. And you're going to just stand up and be recognized. And we have our salutatorian, Isabella Yetto here. I've seen both of their speeches, and I think we're all in for a treat on graduation. I think there's going to be some maybe final edits, but yeah, congrats guys on being the valid self.
Excellent. Congratulations.
Congratulations.
What's your future plans?
For me, I'm planning on going to University of Buffalo. Right now, mechanical engineering, but I will most likely switch to some sort of pre-med major, maybe in biology or pharmaceutical science or not, because I'm recently taking a big interest in that.
Excellent.
Nice. I'm planning on going to SUNY Oneonta next year for computer science.
Excellent. Very good. Congratulations.
Best selected.
Yes.
He is.
Thank you.
You don't have to stick around for the full meeting, but we may have cupcakes at the end. Just, I want to throw that out there to be just transparent, but by no means are you forced to stay through the whole meeting if you don't want to. And congratulations.
Thank you
for coming.
Thank you.
Looking forward to your speeches too. Okay, at this time, I entertain a motion to recess our regular meeting for our public hearing on the Code of Conduct and District-wide Safety Plan. Make a motion. Good night.
Second.
Motion is seconded. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That is carried. Sir?
Sure. So the Code of Conduct, this is a pretty solid document. We use it often, and we use it so many days in a row throughout the year, and we've been at this for so many years. It's a pretty solid document. We don't have many flaws in this, but we did have some updates. Mostly to the language in the prohibited student conduct, there was one where we added the language promoting violence. And that simple phrase allows us to address a lot of the behaviors we're seeing through social media where people are instigating things online. It's not really a threat, but they're definitely promoting some inappropriate behavior in our district. So that simple phrase allows us to capture those behaviors way more accurately than just a threat, because now sometimes it isn't. So that's a valuable update for us. We also added update to the plagiarism section under the academic misconduct. We are starting to see more and more AI-generated content, papers, etc. So we did specifically add that in there, that uncited AI content is technically plagiarism. So again, a valuable update for us because that reflects what we're seeing in our buildings. We did remove a section under the part of the Code of Conduct that goes over what teachers' procedures are when they're dealing with a disruptive student. There was a language in there that had a teacher put a student in the hallway if they're being disruptive. We don't do that. We haven't done that for years. That's something that should have come out before, but that's something we just caught this year. So that was removed. In addition to that, I think the only other change that we had was a corporal punishment language, and that was just a legal update that we had to change to reflect the changes in the law. So outside of those changes, the document's pretty sound.
Restorative. We did add.
Oh, we did
request.
Right, we did add restorative justice to the Code of Conduct. It wasn't a practice that it's not like a go-to for us right now, but it's something that we're looking at doing in the future. So we wanted to make sure that it was in there, so that even if we started to do restorative justice in really small pockets, it was something that was in the Code of Conduct. We're looking at it for a couple different things, and we just wanted it there as an option.
The code of conduct is reviewed annually by our attorney as well, just to make sure there's not any other law or regulation changes out there. And when we make adjustments, they all go by our attorney as well, make sure we don't, we're in line and we don't stray, or we shouldn't stray as far as changes and adjustments. So it was reviewed this year by Lindy.
Okay.
I'm happy to hear about the restorative justice. I think that was my second conference that I attended. A whole session on it, brought back huge packet, and glad to hear that that's being looked at.
On the AI, that's something we're seeing a lot more of. We don't have a policy on that, correct? As a district, we don't have a.
Not on that directly.
Yeah, is that something that we need to look at though? Because our districts are implementing AI policies.
I think as it matures, we may need to, and may need to at least look at it to consider it. But I think the key is, AI is a tool, almost like smartphones are a tool. So if they cite and they follow their proper practices, they should be okay, whether they use that tool or whether they use Google. So as we go forward, I think as this matures, it's definitely going to be something we're going to look at. But right now in its infancy, I think we may want to.
Is that with the summer law conference? Is that they focusing on that?
One of the items.
One of the things, and you're attending that?
Yep.
Okay. Good.
Yeah, it'd be interesting to see how would you even cite something like that, right? Because
So it sounds like they're preparing.
AI's pulling in
Yeah,
so many
it's
different
I think
sources, right, that it's not citing, so how would a student cite
Right.
ChatGPT, right?
Yeah.
Whatever, we don't know what it brought in for sources, that doesn't make it right.
Exactly.
That's,
And I'm guessing there'll be some updates to citation language as well.
I think
APA.
at some point, right, SCD is gonna put something out there that's gonna
We would hope.
guide us,
That's what I
right?
figured.
Right.
Look at it, too.
Yeah,
Something definitely.
definitely something we monitor.
Okay, that was all the changes?
That's it.
That's it. Fine, sir.
All right, the district-wide safety policy. Normally, we're only changing out names to committees and things like that, these small changes. This year, the state sent us a couple regulations a couple months ago that are going into effect next month. So one of the regulations entailed adding terms such as sheltering, wherever you saw shelter in place. We had to add evacuate when you saw evacuation. There was like 5 or 6 terms. So we met that. All of those are now in there. The second regulation had to do with trauma-informed drilling. This is the biggest change. We now have to announce to students, staff, and parents, grandparents, when a drill is gonna occur. So every year, we're required to hold 12 evacuations, formerly called fire drills, and 4 lockdowns. Now, we're not sure the exact guidelines. We may have to do it the day before, within 24 hours, a week ahead. We're not exactly sure of that definition of when we need to inform everyone involved. But we're gonna have to inform, send out a messenger, etc., maybe the week before, the day before, saying, hey, we're gonna perform a lockdown drill tomorrow, just to let you know, and whatever terminology we choose to use in that. And then probably before the drill, we're gonna have to make an announcement saying, staff, students, we're about to perform a lockdown drill, and whatever terminology and messages we use with that as well. So that is a big change, because a lot of times we do prepare fire drills for Tuesday, but then it rains and we change it. Or we know we're gonna do one this week, but weather dependent. So how we're gonna fit those calls a week ahead or a day ahead, we're not sure how that's gonna work. We also have accidental lockdowns here because of how our, emergency notification system is set up. Are we then gonna have to send a follow-up message the next day to our community saying, hey, this just occurred? So there's a lot of moving pieces here, but those are the big changes. We also added Addendum 11, the workplace violence plan and program that we put in place. And Addendum 12 is the DELTAT team, the Delaware County Threat Assessment Team that Mike and I, Dr. McDonald and I are members of. So those are the smaller changes, but the big change are those drill changes. We're not sure how that's gonna work, but we're gonna do the best we can to meet those guidelines.
Your safety measures, the staff, is it stated in the current one that the staff was trained in August of 13. and that annual trainings will take place. Have they taken place, and is that date outdated now? Because if we haven't trained, it was mostly on monitors and hall personnel.
Trained for what?
Safety measures. So what to do, that's what the caption was. I can pull it up on the page there.
Would that be our yearly
That's
training
like
through?
outdated. Yeah, that date has to be adjusted. Thank you for catching that.
Yeah, it was August 13, and I'm thinking we had to have trained since then.
Yep.
Otherwise,
Did it say, was that the first year we had the safety plan, that said training will commence yearly afterwards?
let me pull it up. I think it was on page 8. I can tell you. So two things. I mean, the date might need to be changed when the last date the staff was trained, or just say that they will be annually trained. It's the second paragraph. Hall monitors, greeters, and other staff members who may be interacting with visitors entering the building
Yeah,
were initially trained in August of 2013 on assessing.
And then
So-
annual training will take place at the end. Okay.
So I just wanted to make sure that that was a continued practice.
Yep.
With everything going on in the room today.
I think we've looked at this a million times. I can't believe we did this.
No,
Well, I think
we're
it
okay the
reads-
way it's
It
written.
reads initially trained, it was just
Well,
citing,
right.
probably when this was developed.
But, you know, I mean, we're, especially like the workplace violence, that kind of got us really looking at it, talking to individuals. And it's an area you don't want to have a gap. So if you have changed personnel, if you have a substitute, you have somebody different at that greeter position and everything.
Mhm.
So that's a very valid point that you're making. And it is something we've talked about a number of times. Right, and do we have to update, do we have to approach it differently, do we have to put
Right.
guidelines so that there's not something missed? Because they're such a frontline.
And that type of staff may change, like they may not be there in the middle of the year or in the beginning of the year, but they may come in the middle of the year and they need to be trained at that time.
Yep, absolutely. The workplace violence, and even all of them, we're actually working on some onboarding systemic work, because within 30 days after initial hire now, individuals have a number of mandated trainings that they have to have. So we're actually working up with a system that we're gonna have in place. The day after the board meeting, Corey actually has this room secured for us the day after the board meeting. So anybody who's hired, we can get them in immediately the next day and onboard them. Because we have workplace learning has to be onboarded really before they step on the grounds, but within 30 days at least. So things are developing and changing that way regulation wise. So we're also working to put that in place.
And it's certainly not to discourage employment, but it's to give them better training
Oh,
so they can do
absolutely.
their job properly.
Yep, and to keep everybody safe. Thanks for that.
Question on the notifications. Was that just for drills, or is that,
It is only currently for drills.
Okay.
I expect there may be more additional changes in the
okay.
pipeline.
What is our policy or plan for notifications for actual lockdown events? It wasn't clear in the document are we reaching out to parents in all situations, or is
Depends
it-
on the situation.
Okay.
The
And it depends on the
publicly-
building as well, or is it?
What's that?
Does it depend on the building as well? Or is-
Depends on the overall and the situation
Okay.
completely, and then how widespread it is. The public liaison position is my role. So I make that evaluation depending on the circumstance and the decision making. Some are a little bit of a gray area, because you don't want to over communicate some of these instances, like a false lockdown, or at least for me, because we want my voice to catch attention. That's something we noticed during COVID. People just stopped answering the phone when they heard my voice. They didn't know why I was calling. So, depending on what the regulations are, depending on what we're doing procedure-wise, there may be some multiple layers of people who communicate other than my voice, and I'm doing a live event, so people react to it. You understand what I mean?
Mhm.
So we are gonna.
Can we add that to the plan, so it's clear in the plan that that's the communication
As far as
protocols, or-
the event communication?
Yeah, for actual events.
We can take a look at that.
I
And,
think that's gonna be a
determine
future
that as well.
concern. I mean, if you're announcing to the general public that you're
Gotta be
holding a fire drill, that to me is a safety concern.
Depending on how specific we have to be. If they say you have to put out, you have to communicate the date and the time, obviously you're not doing it in public, but you're communicating just to the, to the parents and such. You're still kind of exposing
Right.
the action that you're taking. Absolutely. So hopefully they keep it broad. What we were talking about was hopefully that we can communicate out and say next week, the following safety drills will be taking place.
Right.
Something like that.
Or
and
weather
then people
permitting
know.
with the fire drills.
Right.
We're also not telling them when the kids are gonna be outside, like you're concerned about. 'Cause it's a
Right.
valid concern that we've been concerned about. We're like,
Right.
Wait a minute. we're
That's
taking them
part
from
of
the
our
of the
safety plan
building,
that we want, yeah.
Putting them outside and then we're telling 3,000 people we're doing it?
Right.
How is it? Yeah, so there are some questions.
Did they give any, it's gonna be a foolish question, did the state give any reasons on why they would come up with such a thing?
Yes, yes.
They did?
It was actually in legislation, a discussion about eliminating or moving it to one. Because
Lockdown.
there were some lockdown drills that were done as more of a live event, unannounced, that traumatized students and staff. So somebody came in and did like a live shooting drill, without anybody knowing about it, and really traumatized some individuals somewhere. And so they want to control that piece so that students aren't getting unnecessarily, or staff unnecessarily traumatized.
Which I get that, but the thing that tells me is, I mean, not every situation, but there are situations that the problem is within when a student or whatever else. And when you advertise that you're gonna be doing a drill, to me, that just also advertises a potential opportunity, that somebody may not know it exists. Now they can have one that's coming, but that's the problem with a cookie cutter approach. There was a situation in a particular place, instead of dealing with it in a particular place, let's make a cookie cutter, and everybody now has to deal with a new regulation. Or,
I hope they make it broad enough to allow, I mean,
Right.
if we have a fire drill at 1 o'clock on Monday and it's pouring rain,
Right.
The admin team should have the availability to move whatever they need to move. It should be broad enough I agree with you. And even on a monthly basis, we're gonna have the following safety drills this month, or this
Right.
quarter, or something like
Well, it goes
that.
back to you can't take common sense out of the equation.
Worst case scenario would be, you have to be specific, and then you have a rain delay. So then you say you call, you put out the message, and you say, okay, tomorrow at 10 a.m., and then you don't do it at 10 a.m. So now you gotta put out a call and say, hey, by the way, we didn't do it at 10 a.m. We're gonna try to do it at 11 a.m. tomorrow. And then right, so you start doing this, and that's gonna frustrate people very quickly.
And I can see that communication overload piece going, that phone rings and it's, they hear that it's a recorded message and all of a sudden, hey, the phone's going.
Exactly.
They're not gonna take it seriously when we really need to. Yeah,
Yeah.
this needs to be thought out at the state level.
So, more details are coming, because there's other, the building level, there's details at the building level that are gonna be adjusted, the confidential plan. And so there's more details that will be coming, so hopefully there's ongoing conversation, because they're in the middle of it, but, we'll, as always, we'll follow the regulation, but we will also use a common sense approach and what's best for Walton as we apply it.
One other comment I have on the threat assessment team, I think it's good that we've added that, but I did see recently in the NISBA, I think May, on board, they had an article on threat assessment toolkit, and it looks like SED may eventually require that schools actually have threat assessment teams, so it's something that we definitely want to be keeping an eye out for, I think.
Yeah, we actually have a process in place, and a team detailed out, and an internal process in place. But in addition to that, Rick and I joined the county-wide group that the governor had mandated. So we kind of which is great, because we have that second level, and that's an excellent process. But we do have an internal process in place that I think actually using the same tool, or a similar tool than what they have.
Anything else? Okay, we intend to adopt both those plans at the August 20th regular board meeting. So we would like to receive any and all public comment through our district clerk, or at cfrainer@waltoncentralcsd.org, or by calling 607-865-4116, extension 6130. So all public comment, please go through our district clerk, Corey Frainer, and this will be open for more than 30 days, so we plan to adopt on August 20th. Okay, I entertain a motion to return to regular meeting.
I'll make a motion.
A second?
Second.
Motion second to return to regular meeting. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. Okay, we'll start off with the approval of the minutes from the June 4th regular board meeting as presented. Any discussion?
Make a motion to accept them as submitted. Second.
Motion is second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That's carried. Next, we have the approval of the CSE, CPSE recommendations. Entertain a motion for approval on those.
Make a motion.
Second.
Motion is second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Those are approved. And discussion items. So starting off, graduation is going to be celebrated Saturday, June 29th. For us board members, please arrive no later than 9:30 a.m. I did see something nice. As far as the boutonnieres go, someone had a metallic magnetic clasp for boutonnieres so that Mr. Dutcher doesn't get stuck with a pin this year.
Well, what's the fun with?
Hey, listen, it's a recommendation. I mean, I'll take one for the team if I have to. I do appreciate that. 9:30. Our sports merger, we'll talk about that further under discussion item for the approval of that. If you guys don't mind, we'll kick the discussion to that so it's a standalone item for taking action on that. So we're up to legislative update. Mr. Verweer.
Okay. Yeah, there was a few bills that passed the legislature recently. I thought it would be good just to bring them up around the table. Ones that applied, we have discussed issues previously. So the first one is a bill that requires every school district and BOCES board to have at least one non-voting member from the student body. And this is actually on the governor's desk for signature right now. If she were to sign it before July 1st, then we would actually have to act on this before July 1st. For 2024, we'd have to have a student body representative. It's not thought that that's going to actually happen, at least according to what NID has put out. So it looks like that would actually start next year, so after July 1st of 2025. As far as the industrial development agencies, there was a bill passed that would require representation from at least one school board or a superintendent on an IDA, and that's for purposes of reviewing pilot agreements. But that's a good measure forward. The other one relates to zero emission buses. So that would actually shorten the time period over which the transportation aid is provided to districts from, was originally 12 years, but now they're moving it down to 8 years. So that actually puts it within the typical time frame of when a bus actually would be operating. I know that's something that we talked about, I think, at one of the prior meetings, that getting state aid out for 12 years is going to go beyond the lifespan of an electric bus.
You said they took that, proposed take that to 8?
8 years, yep. And then the final one is, I'm just going to mention today, is the New York Child Data Protection Act, and this is a bill that would require online platforms that collect or share information on your children to get pre-approval based from parents or guardians before a child is 18 years of age. So I think that's a pretty important measure to put in place. And then looking ahead to next year, at the end of May, Governor Hochul proposed or put out that she basically said she's going to put out a proposed cell phone legislation in schools in 2025, January of 2025, and it would involve not having smartphones in schools. And she said that she would allow flip phones so students could still text and make phone calls, but this is something that.
I think we should just go back to bag.
What's
This
wrong
is
with
something
Rotary
that is definitely going to be a hot topic, looking forward to next year once that comes out, so. Expect to see a lot of media out there on that and maybe some public comments.
Yeah, again, it's gonna be top down, obviously.
Yeah.
That's a challenging part.
Yeah.
And the student requirement to be on the board, it's a huge commitment, we all know that, and to expect a student to make that commitment, and then if we can't find a student that wants to follow through with it, then are we in violation of not having a student on the board? So that's something that, you know, I mean, I'm sure there would be somebody, but it's a huge commitment, so.
It's BOCES as well as each district.
Yeah.
And for BOCES, I don't know how many schools do we
They
have?
gotta have 2, we
Yeah,
have
or
16.
if it's over 20, I think they have to have 3.
Yeah.
So it depends on how many schools you have in your.
So then we may have to provide transportation,
BOCES will.
BOCES, yeah,
So this is,
to get someone to the board meetings.
It's interesting because, you know, there's a process that currently exists. There's a number of schools that this was discussed this week regionally. There's a number of schools that have or have recently adopted. The current process is that it has to go out to the voters on the budget proposition to add a student member to your school board. And then you decide your selection process. A lot of the schools, typically the ones that have had it, Delhi's had one, Bainbridge has had one for, I guess, 4 years or more. Unitigo just added. But the process that a number of schools are using is it's a senior, and they have to be in a leadership role in either senior class or student council, one of the leadership committees. That's the process that they
As
use.
if they're not busy enough. those
Correct.
students.
Delhi, I don't know what their process is, but they actually conduct interviews.
And then that's appointed position,
It's
not an
a,
elected position.
right, no, the concept
I'm
of,
just-
correct.
Right, I'm
But the
just,
concept of
Right.
even having the position has to be approved by the voters.
by the
So-
voters, right.
So the governor putting this through, and it came from the legislature, it didn't come from the governor. You know, they're taking local control at the state level and putting the parameters in place. So I don't know if it means that there is no proposition, there's no vote on it, because now it's law, I would say.
Mhm.
And I don't know if there's gonna be parameters for your selection process.
the
So there's a
bill,
lot
yeah, the bill says the candidate is the student body president or they're appointed by the principal, superintendent, or the board.
So
That's what
they
it says.
tightened up on
Yeah.
that as well, so
Yeah.
yeah.
And I don't think it's a law. I mean, it's not like we're gonna be voting on it. They're telling us we're gonna be doing this.
Exactly.
That hasn't been signed yet, though.
Has not been signed. It's
So,
expected.
potentially,
It's
right.
expected to be signed now. She has until the end of this year to sign it.
What's the parameters of what's that student?
They've got
How
those,
to be
they've got
participated
those
with.
spelled out. They, of course, they're in no executive session. They are not a voting member of the board in any capacity. So they're there to
Public session.
witness and advise on public session, I guess. But there's very strict parameters already in place. Now, unless this expands that and changes it, because this is now law, that's the legislation is gonna be put into place that may change some of the previous protocols. So, more to come.
Yeah. So I can see, just for our policy committee, looking forward, we're gonna have some issues to deal with coming up as we get into 2025.
Sure.
Okay, thank you, Kevin.
You're gonna miss it.
Yeah.
Okay, planning ahead for next fall's Scholastic Achievement Ceremony. We're suggesting either the week of November 4th through the 8th or November 12th through the 15th. Do we need a decision on that right now, or just
No, but-
kind of making it?
We should get a decision by the end of summer.
Does it have to be a day of the week, a certain?
Usually we have it on a Tuesday, I think.
Because
sometimes.
the one Tuesday is election day.
We can have it any day.
Okay.
Traditionally, we've had it on a Tuesday or a Monday, I think we had it.
Yeah, I would
So-
suggest maybe not a Monday with the students making
Right.
desserts.
Yeah, right.
I wouldn't want to back it to the weekend. weekend on them.
And then the next Tuesday is actually after the holiday, so that wouldn't work for that either, right? So it's,
So maybe a Wednesday or Thursday?
Probably Wednesday or Thursday night. So if you could look at your schedules.
Does anybody have any issues with that week of the 4th through the 8th? You wanna just narrow it down to that? We ask admin or anybody's, any potential conflicts that week?
We're okay on the admin side. We don't have any events that we know of at that point in that year.
Is it Wednesday, like, the 6th is a Wednesday, the 7th is a Thursday, obviously, so if you wanna get it later in the week, Wednesday or Thursday would be I'm just trying to narrow it down for you a little bit. The 6th or the 7th, whichever one works best for admin, let us know.
No difference for me at this point.
Talk to the ones making the cupcakes or the desserts. Well, if there's a preference there,
Yep, we'll talk to,
but if you guys are good with it, I think
Magnus Foster.
let's just target that 4th through the 8th and let them pick the date that works best for them in their class. I'm fine with that. Election day is the 5th, so we should avoid that. So, no Monday, so either the 6th or the 7th. whichever
Wednesday
one.
or Thursday, that week.
Does that sound good?
That was easier than normal. Let's keep that trend.
We're months out, I have nothing
Conflict.
scheduled in November, I don't think, so.
If we're scheduled up in November, you're good at that. There is a need to schedule a policy committee meeting in July. Just a reminder for us to get together with Lori to give her dates that are not available. And then start times. So Kevin, you usually have the toughest start time.
Basically from the July 8th through probably the, well, the 25th, the 23rd, 20, 22, 23, 24, I'm not in town. But from the 8th through the 19th, anything before 7:30 is probably gonna be tough for me those
That's
2
fine.
weeks. If you
So a
wanna do-
7:30 start,
What's that?
a 7:30 start.
That's, should be able to make that, whether, I am oil and stone in those 2 weeks, that's why it's gonna be
Which 2 weeks, Kevin?
they start the 8th, I'm hoping to be done by the 19th. Weather cooperative. And I'm not here the 22nd, 23rd, 24th anyway.
Okay, I'll look at some dates.
It'll be a little tricky. That's not November, so it's gonna be a little trickier for us. So much for the trend. Again, prepping for the 24-25 committees, advisory committees. And 1 or 2 board reps on the district safety committee will need to be appointed on July 2nd. So we met with Jake today to do onboard type stuff, so he's aware of how the committees are, what their general functions are. So if anyone has any preference to shift committees,
Right.
we should take that into consideration sooner rather than later, so that we know where someone can fill it. and be appointed.
what's the job for the safety committee? Like, how often does that meet?
We schedule monthly meetings, and then depending on the topic, depending on the agenda need, they may be canceled. Potentially, Rick, that's your committee facilitate, typically, what, 6, maybe 4 to 6 a year
I'd say this year
definitively?
was the least amount we've done since I've taken over, probably about 5 times, 4 or 5 times.
So there are
We're
3,
meeting monthly, and many times there were just no agenda items, so,
there's what, 3:15?
yeah.
3:15 meetings.
The conference calls, can they, or?
They can be.
Yeah, okay.
We have had people come in via Zoom, which we could accommodate, especially for a board member. So,
So if you're interested in switching committees or doing something like that, please let Corey know, so we can try to get organized by the 2nd. The NISBA annual convention's October 20th through 22nd. The registration opens July 30th. So we're gonna have a final discussion at our next meeting. Our registration opens up July 30th, so Corey will need to know if anyone's interested in attending that. If we do not attend as a board, we can use a budget line for an in-depth retreat or professional development of the board. Any other topic we could use those funds for instead of going down there. The convention this year is in New York City, so keep that in mind.
Or multiple mini retreats, multiple topics.
How much do we have budgeted for this, conference training, do we know, or?
Looking at Meg.
Yeah, and finance, sorry.
How much do you think we have budgeted under the annual convention for training for the board?
Do we know how much like a NISBA type training or retreat would be, if we ever?
No, I think it depends on, because they'll customize, so it really depends on what your request is topic-wise and what they need to do.
Can we get an estimate for like just what a day?
Yeah,
$7,000.
7,000.
There you go.
Is what's budgeted for the retreat?
Oh, that's
Or
what's
for
budgeted for.
Yeah,
for
this
the
was
convention.
budgeted.
So, yeah, we
for
can find out
conference.
what a typical, on-site retreat would be like for them to come down with training, depending on what it is. If it's illegal topics, I would suggest that we don't, because the majority of the legal trainings you do for boards or trainings that you do out there for our Forenza does, and we can do that under our one training a year. Just pick the topic, same topic, and have people who do it for NISBA do it for us, because they're our lawyers. But for other topics, we certainly can, so we can get that info.
Just a reminder to finish your evaluations on super eval for the board self-evaluation as well as the evaluation for Dr. McDonald. We plan on, please finish those by the 30th, June 30th. We're planning on meeting on those with finished documents on July 2nd to just discuss. So we'd like to have those done by the 30th so we can get them compiled and review them by the 2nd. Pretty please. Okay, we're up to correspondence
We do not have
and additions to the agenda.
it. We finalized a summer special education student transportation bid. And that would be, the lowest bid was from Rolling V. And so they will be the primary contract holder with a standby contract with A&D.
And we'll approve that under 9J.
Yes. New business side.
Okay, so we're up to the consent agenda. Any discussion on any of the individual topics under the consent agenda?
I make a motion to approve consent agenda.
Second.
Motion is second to approve the consent agenda. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Happy retirement, Missy Summers.
Yeah.
That was the one thing I'd like to announce is she is retiring. So we just accepted her retirement.
I think we should help it out a little.
Okay, we're up to new business, accepting donations. We'd like to accept donations with sincere appreciation, $142 collected from the parents and attendees at the class of the 2025 crowning during prom. To go to the class of 2025, $25 from Jennifer Wright to the class of 2025, $500 from the Gruber family to the John S. Gruber 75 Outstanding Character Award, $500 from Clarence Lepar to the Clarence A. Lepar Annual Scholarship for the Advancement of Professional Education. We have a motion to accept those donations.
I'll make a motion.
Second.
Motion is second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That's carried. Next, we have the authorization of the digital documents as official records. Any discussion on those?
Second.
Motion second to authorize that. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? It's carried. Next, we have approval of 24 and 25 stipends. Any discussion on those?
I did have one question. The tax collector, I thought when we brought the other individual into the business office that that was gonna be part of their role. Is that not?
The tax collector stipend.
Yeah, I'm sorry, I didn't realize it was on there. I would like to, when we appoint someone to replace Missy, I would like to see that responsibility and compensation along with their salary.
So should I take that off at this time, Meg?
I would recommend this. I think so.
So it wouldn't be an added one, right? It would just be part of the.
Correct.
So you're gonna take that and fold it into partial for the new hire and just take it off as a stipend, so permanently going forward, this
Part of their
stipend will be removed.
responsibilities for the person that gets appointed.
Any further discussion on that? If not, I'd entertain a motion to approve the amended resolution.
Motion to approve that?
Second.
Motion seconded. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That is carried. Next, we have approval of the non-represented contracts. Any discussion on that?
Motion to approve that?
Second.
Motion seconded to approve the non-represented contracts. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? It's carried. Next, we have the approval of the transition service agreement. Any discussion on that?
I make a motion to approve that.
Motion second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? It's carried. Next, we have the approval of the external auditor letter of agreement. This is with DiArcangelo for our external review that they do every year. Any discussion on that?
Make a motion.
Second.
Motion second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? It's carried. And now we held the discussion on the approval of sports program mergers from our discussion items. So I'd open discussion for that topic now. Anyone wants? If there is none, I would entertain a.
I just have, sorry,
Go
no
ahead.
me. I just have one thing. The indoor track, I know when we first approved that to happen, I noticed the numbers are declining in that, and I would just, it's more so of a comment than anything, to keep track of that, because as those numbers decline, if they don't have enough interested students, I think that the district may want to consider pulling that sport and possibly offering, something else. We have, it hasn't opened yet, but we do have the bowling alley that's still planning on coming, tennis, golf, things like that, that we may want to entertain at this point now, and maybe that'll spark a new interest in different kids' sports.
I think that'd be a good practice for all of them that are listed here, just to keep track. The numbers get to a certain point that it just, to just review them.
Right.
One thing with the indoor track is, we have a lot of athletes that are trying to do the dual sports at that period point in
Right.
time. I think a few more are catching on to that now, and I think that may lead to more
Right.
Well,
in the future, but.
Yeah, that was
it's,
part of it when they first initiated that, they thought that they were gonna have a lot more, and they did when it first started, but I think the numbers are now continually going down, so maybe that's something that they'll wanna look into, because it may not be worth the expense of the travel, and, they go to, Ithaca, I think, right? Sometimes for
You've got to
competition. Portland, so, right, so that might be something
Yeah, I
that
think
we could offer.
with indoor track, you do have to look at, I mean, if the numbers are separated out and the boys and girls separately, but it is really one team. So, I mean, it's a full bus that goes on those trips. And indoor track does help kids develop for the other seasons as well, the spring seasons for whatever sport they're doing, so. I think there's a lot of value. I do have a couple, discussion points. So with soccer and baseball and softball, those are going to Class B. That's, that is a change, for those sports. I would like us to consider the scheduling for those, specifically for soccer. We play all Class D schools. We're gonna continue to play in the Delaware League. And, Mr. Hoover can correct me if I'm wrong, but we have to play a certain amount of games against B teams, basically, in order to get the points for sectionals.
If we're on the edge
Yeah.
of qualifying, it would make
Yeah, so,
it also makes a difference with the seeding points.
yeah, so just something that we should continue to look at with our scheduling, is just make sure that we're getting a mix of those teams, plus that we're being competitive. We do make it to sectionals. We've only played Class D teams, now we're actually playing schools like Oneonta and Trumansburg or Lansing. Those are very strong programs, so, we want to be competitive with those teams.
So based on our bed numbers moving through, our one class right now of 85 to 84. It's in the 80s. When we're beyond that class, most of our sports, if not all of them, will be back down to Class C, regardless of whether we're merged or not.
Okay.
So it's really kind of an anomaly that bubble is.
For 2 years, basically.
Yeah, well, 3, last year the numbers were different. New York State for certain sports went to 6 classifications, and it really changed the cutoff numbers in those sports. So those are the sports: basketball, soccer, baseball, softball, sports that most schools have. So it's interesting to see that. In basketball, whether we're solo or whether we're merged with Downsville, will be Class B.
And a lot of ours, we were right on the bubble of being
Right.
high Class C at like 214. Now our beds numbers are 234 for the next couple of years, so you might as well bring on the extra help at that point. You're gonna be there anyway.
But your point's taken as far as schedule. We've already, preliminary been looking at that for our fall and winter sports.
That's good.
I think one of the
To
things.
up the competition, like
Yeah.
you're saying.
One-
Even
one-
in the MAC, it's all C's. There's
Yeah.
3 teams in the MAC that are B in various sports: Green, us, and Sydney.
Yeah.
And in basketball, I think it's just Sydney and us. So that makes it challenging, I guess.
Yeah. I was just thinking, long term, we ought to discuss, especially in light of years coming forward with such low numbers, of how do we actually make this more, I don't want to say stable, but if we're committed to this over a longer period of time, I want to reassure the athletes and the communities that, this is a 3-year agreement, this is a 5-year agreement, like we're done going back and forth, does this make sense or not make sense? I think we really have to commit for longer periods of time to give the communities the breadth of, okay, this is the way it's going to be. Now we can sort out, what's our coaching staff gonna be? What's our uniforms gonna be? What's this gonna be? Because 2 years down the road, your numbers are gonna plummet. The anomaly is that one class right now that's kicking everything up, which makes everybody really feel good in the fact that we'd be kicked up a class anyway, just based on our own numbers. So it's not like the other schools driving us up. It is in a couple sports, but not across the board. I just think that we probably ought to either pull the boards back together again, Downsville, in my opinion, or have a subcommittee of ourselves, meet with them like we did last time, and then just say, hey, let's talk about a longer term relationship here so both communities can settle in on the shared expenses to save us costs and figure out the transportation, figure out the uniforms,
Planning in general.
just give them longer than a year to make these plans. I think.
To add to your point, like right now, we're kind of playing out 2 scenarios with our scheduling, with everything, that, all right, if we move forward with the merger, here's the direction we're gonna go. If we don't, here's what we have to do. So a lot of the things that are added to that one sheet, the plans for adjustments moving forward, a lot of those things are 2, 3, 4 year processes. It's not gonna be, all right, we have this on the sheet, you do it next year.
So,
The uncertainty
yeah,
makes it difficult.
I don't wanna jump ahead with this, but you know, if this goes through, I think we should, I would like to ask if we can get the boards back together as far as the Downsville reps, ourselves, as well as our athletic directors to get together and kind of say, okay, what time frame makes more sense? And then bring it back to this full board again, their full board again, and say, okay, here's the time frame we think makes the most sense for one of these mergers. So tonight is the 1 year check-in type period, but I think we should really look into solidifying this if we're all in favor of moving it forward. Solidify it September, October, or something like that. Make a determination for a longer period of time if that's what we're going to do, so the communities can settle in on it.
I would agree with that, and also I think from reading some of the survey comments, that if we say that this is what we're going to do going forward, then communicate that out to our, to our community and our parents, and then they can all settle down too, of like, we need to learn to work together. This is the way it's going to be. This is the way, we have this one class that for the next 2 years, it's going to look like our numbers are really, really good. But looking at the enrollment report, we drop back down to 60. And then you look at elementary school, it's 50 and 40. So, yeah, I mean, I would really agree with that we get back together and figure out that this is where we're planning on going. And then we can do our budgeting and coaching, and this wasn't just a, one year thing.
It makes you wonder though, what are the students doing? I mean, our numbers overall, I'm comparing a few years ago, but our numbers are declining in everything. I mean, football, how high football, we used to have what, 3 strings, didn't we, years ago? And I mean, the kids are getting into different things. What is it that they're getting into?
We have,
Right.
7 to 12 next year, a solid number of 74 kids in the football program. When you consider that, I mean, I graduated with, well, I don't know how many I graduated, but my senior class going up through was close to 115 kids.
No,
But now we're looking at
60
60
to-
kids,
Yeah.
it's like almost.
Half.
And the thing was, your
Right.
class wasn't the anomaly. They were all
Right.
that big.
Everyone was
So
that big,
If they're all
yes.
that big, like you have a
It
lot of.
was an
people.
anomaly if we only had like 95.
Right. I mean, we graduated, I think, with 88, somewhere in that ballpark, and we were the same way. You had a full JV program with 2 or 3 squads on it. You had modified programs and a varsity program that you couldn't fit another person on the sideline, so.
But you are right, Mrs. Williams, that some of these numbers are less program-wide than they were when we were just alone. When I
Right.
was in school. And
We
that's
saw
what
it.
Downsville added in.
We saw a couple first-year seniors go out for sports this year
Yeah.
and loved it.
Right.
And went out for all these sports and like, oh, I wish we'd have done this years ago. And I'm like, so does the programs. Very, very good athletes, that just started out and just started experiences, so.
Because our booster club numbers, I mean, they're high, but then, they're coming in and there's something else that's, catching their interest, and maybe it's music and maybe it's, the drama clubs and stuff like that, but,
Or video games.
well, that could be too, they get to that age limit, so, yeah, I think, and that's why we may have to change these sports a
All
little
the
bit.
JV.
Because you're a 7th grader, in a lot of our programs, you're asked to compete against 9th graders. And, it's only
It's
2 year
discouraging.
difference, but
Right.
there's a big difference between
That
some of
age
our
group.
7th
Yeah, there
graders
is.
and 9th graders. And they get discouraged and say,
Yeah.
why am I doing this? And understandably, but it's not like the schools around us have JV programs that we can compete with
Right.
anyway. And the last time we had a JV football program, we were going to Corning and Elmira and all these places, and that's really why we don't. One of the main reasons, numbers wise, we could probably support a JV program, but who's gonna wanna ride 2 hours on a bus with 9th and 10th graders to Corning?
Right.
Go there, play a big school that you might get beat up playing, and
Yeah, it gets discouraging.
So any,
I was just going to follow on what you were saying, because I was actually going to bring up a similar point, that a lot of the comments that I saw in the survey related to the merger was, transportation and scheduling complaints, stuff like that. And I think a lot of what's been proposed in the one document for changes, that's going to help resolve a lot of those issues. But I was thinking, could we get updates more regularly, say like when we make the merged athletic handbook, can we get an update on that at a board level? So that we're more prepared going into next season to make that decision sooner.
Better
but-
than update, we will upload the athletic handbook to board docs. There's no reason why you can't have
And
it.
it's gonna be a public document that we're gonna give to our
Right.
coaches, students, and parents, you guys.
I'm just trying to,
Board
just following what
yeah.
Graydon is saying, if we can have those discussions sooner, or maybe there's just a committee, maybe we have a merged services committee that we form that can then just go out and meet with Downsville, doesn't have to be at the whole board level, and then just bring it back to.
I attended the last, who else was at that meeting with us?
Rhonda.
Yeah, and I thought it was productive. I mean, we could talk frankly with the other board members and good, voice our concerns, voice their concerns, and I thought it was a good discussion, so.
Because it's not just athletics now either, it's
That's
other.
right.
Where I was just
stuff
gonna go.
that's,
That's just right where I was gonna go.
Yeah, so-
Is that we're, it probably would be very wise for us to have that conversation and be very broad. And be able to bring anything to the table, whether it's operational, whether it's instructional, whether it's extra, co-curricular, extracurricular. Shared services is where it's at, where it's going. So.
Maybe something we look at and say, do we need the development of a shared services committee, period? To look at all aspects of it, right? Make it broad enough experience.
There might not
Capture it all. Right.
Correct. The committee can make a determination, it can be Downsville, and, if we have something else that Downsville doesn't provide, and we're looking for it, then we can reach out to the other districts that are within that geographic area and travel distance. It could be a very good organizational structure.
But I think it'd be a good thing to start in like September, so that we have the winter to work that through, and we don't end up in a spot that we're coming into the spring sports saying, all right, we gotta make something happen.
Yeah,
And have time for the two boards to be able to get to bed,
Well, especially, as Rhonda mentioned, lifetime sports, when the bowling alley was first starting to open, I had already had a conversation with the Downsville superintendent. He was asking what we were going to do, what the interest was. That was before we merged. So when you think about the shared expenses and the ability to do some of these things, and you think about some of those sports that we lost due to participation or due to some cost, we share cost, we might be able to bring back some of these lifetime sports. You think of golf, you think of tennis, you think of bowling, you think of some of these things. That would be wonderful. That, as you know, we have a population of students that are not being reached by what we're offering now. So definitely something that can be talked about.
So is that something that could be put on the July reorg?
What's that?
That
committee
new
structure.
committee, can we have that at that time, or?
We won't have we could probably get it populated. We won't obviously have a mission for it. We're gonna have some of the background stuff we're gonna have to.
So the
formulate.
policy, is it a policy committee thing first then, or?
Well, we talked about forming those chapters, right?
Yeah.
So we would have to do a lot of development on that, but I'm good with just point blank saying, in the July, we created this as a shared service committee.
Yep.
And then we define the roles of it by August, September, right, and get it kicked off and get it populated. I'm
Get the
perfectly
committee
good with that.
together to start working on,
Yeah.
what is this gonna look like? Yeah.
I'm absolutely.
You already have it tagged in a policy. Remember, we had shared
That's
services
right,
were in a
right.
policy?
Yeah.
So you already got the reasoning, the
Yeah.
justification in there.
I'm good with
Very
that.
good.
You want it under new business?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, thank you. So we'll talk about that on a second. Any further discussion on the sports merger? If not, I entertain a motion to approve it.
I'll make the motion.
Second.
Motion second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? It's carried. And we're up to personal emergency approvals.
This is just the 2 days of curriculum development for a new biology teacher.
Any further discussion on that?
I'll make the motion.
Second.
Motion second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? It's carried. And personnel appointments. Megan Armstrong for custodial worker. Discussion. Motion second, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That's carried. And we're up to administrative remarks.
So Ms. Hector couldn't be with us this evening, and we don't have a report from her. We'll give an update later today when we can. Elementary's been kind of busy, and she's been on some field trips in the last week or so. So she's
I heard they were awesome.
in a movie, or so it's been a busy few weeks for Townsend. As you know, year end is exciting over there, and it's full of a lot of activities. I will say Thursday is their field day in the morning. So we're gonna keep a very close eye on that.
House gatherings too, I'm going.
Oh, house gatherings, yeah, it's an active place this time of year, which is great for the kids. It's great experiences. But from a staff and administrative standpoint, it's a lot. So I give all the staff credit for that. So we'll go to Mr. Loomis.
Sure, I just want to draw attention to what I led off with in my report, and it's just kind of a summary of the college credits our class of 2024 earned. I had it listed out, started by Tompkins Corcoran Community College, and then for the first time, I started to track the credits total. Our graduating class is going to walk out of here with a total of 567 credits under their belt. That's across 54 kids. It averages out to 10 credits per kid. Last year during the graduation, I started to include the scholarship amount that the class has been awarded. I want to continue to do that, and then tag on this graduate or the college credit total on top of that. I think it's going to be a really nice touch to honor the hard work that these kids and our staff they've done for our kids.
That is amazing to be graduating with 24 credits.
Yep.
Awesome. And thank you for the driver education teacher again.
I would say we got lucky.
Yeah, we had to squeeze a little bit, but we got some of you.
Thank you.
So we'll get that. Anything else from Mr. Loomis?
Those college partnerships, is there a cost to us, or is it just, like, we are actually signing something with those colleges?
Yeah, we send a contract for our teachers to, sometimes they have professional development obligations.
Okay.
They have to do work outside of our school year at times, they have to develop their syllabus. Sometimes they have to actually attend department meetings at the institution. It depends on what program you're talking about. So it's not a clear answer.
Yeah, the TC3 is one of the last community colleges, really within our region. If you recall, SUNY Delhi used to be a community college. Urban Community used to be a community college. And a little known fact to a lot of people is that the community college, the residents within the county who attend a community college, there is a monetary value that goes with each one of those individuals out that comes from the county to county of residents to that community college. So our community college has always been able to provide college courses to a high school without a cost directly to the student or to the school district because they're already being subsidized by that community. So I'm glad that we have a community college that we can access some of that subsidy that's there, because we used to be able to at Delhi for years, and students used to be able to wherever they went. But now that Broome Community College is now SUNY Broome, Delhi Community College is now SUNY Delhi, those two are off the table. So TC3 is really the only area that our students are able to access. So it's terrific. But I think Broome Fast Forward has a fee, correct? You still with Broome Fast Forward for a couple?
Yeah, for a couple. I don't know what that fee is though.
But it's not a fee.
Right. So.
Yeah.
These aren't huge costs.
No,
That's what
no,
I'm hearing.
absolutely
So
not.
that it's really valuable.
Yep.
Yep.
And in the future, hopefully, I had talked about this a while ago, a few different times. And we're in a couple different grants, one that we got granted and another one that we're in with DCMO as well, is the concept of adding distance learning back into the high school, which would allow 1 to 2 courses easily a semester and potential college credit, virtual versus web-based, so it's live being taught. That would give an opportunity to push us over the edge for the social.
That's what this room actually started out at.
Yes, I know. That was my my introduction to technology, was the kind of the construction project that built this room. But things have changed, you know, as far as the DL and the ability to provide it without needing the major equipment the way it did. But Rick and I met with DCMO a while ago. We already received the RUS grant a while ago from ONC. We have 1 more year to make a decision on that. But with ONC is additional programming costs that we'd have to buy into. That would be a decision in budget development. The last 2 years, I pulled back on coming to the table with it because of our financial position. This year, it's still there for consideration. However, if we get awarded a RUS grant at DCMO, we already pay for the service. And it would be the same equipment, actually an additional piece of equipment that's a mobile unit to enhance it. And we could go that route instead of the ONC route and not have any additional programmatic charges. So we'll see what happens. But that would be, to me, that would be fantastic to see that come full circle. We used to do virtual field trips years ago to enhance the students' experiences. We did Holocaust survivors every year. In middle school, we did Cleveland animal habitats. We did NASA training with NASA astronauts, and they used to do lesson planning. So hopefully we bring this back just to be able to increase the exposure of our students to you know, things outside of our area.
Well, that was part of my restorative justice, you know, instead of out-of-school suspension, keep it in-school suspension, and yet they can learn from the teachers in the classroom, but be, you know, separated, you know, and at that time, it was like, we can't do this, and then COVID hit, and lo and behold,
Yes.
we can do this, so, yeah.
And the commissioner's looking at, and it should be coming up this fall, some regulation regarding long-term suspensions as well, and potentially reducing or eliminating the ability to do it. So that's out there as well. So it'll be pushing for restorative practices. Okay? And then my end, well, no, Mr. Hoover, we didn't get to you yet.
I have 4 quick things. First of all, Mrs. Tweedy, I like your shirt. My second thing is the code of conduct is not in place yet, but I realized I did not give credit to the AI that created the trivia question logo in the background of those pictures there, so I don't want people coming after me for plagiarism.
Well, we're gonna need to talk about this.
Yeah, third thing is all 14 of our teams were scholar athlete teams. It's the first time in Walton school history we've had 100%. It makes up a school of excellence, or no, school of distinction. School of excellence we've been in the past, which is 75% of our teams. So shows that we truly have student athletes working on our teams, and it's a cool thing. Most years there's only 3 or 4 Section 4 schools that achieve that. So to be one of those schools is pretty cool. The last thing, I know we're going to recognize Mrs. Williams in a minute here, but I want to thank you for all your time on the board over the years and what you've done for our students. So.
Thank you.
She's getting off the board. You have to suck up now.
Just saying that when she got elected.
I had to call you out, I'm sorry. Just a couple quick things, 3 quick things here, but towns and construction coordination for phase 2, nearly complete because we're kind of using the same coordination from last year. But they'll be putting up the barriers, and then they'll be starting with the demolition in the rooms, cabinetry, things of that nature, and then everything else will be under abatement because of that floor. If you remember the sections of floor, the blue material between it had some asbestos material that flagged for. And that's the only asbestos that will be addressed at that time. That'll be starting the day after school's out. We'll be turning it over, and we'll be going at it, and we'll be sending out those pictures every week. As you remember, it was like 2 weeks, I think, and it was gone. There's nothing for the floor to the ceiling. The Foundation Age study that they're conducting, there is a public comment link that has been released. We'll get that to you, as well as pushing it out social media to our public and putting a link on our website within the next couple of weeks. I just received that today.
How long is that review period?
It's in through the summer, I believe.
Okay, even though it's due in December, isn't it?
Yeah, and they're having, in the fall, they're gonna be having some talking points as well.
Okay.
Some sessions, so, but we'll give you any information that we get, that we just got some, we'll pull from different resources, and we'll make sure to communicate, to you, as we move along, and then anything we can with the public, we'll push out, for them. And, with this heat wave that we're in, we've got some mitigation and some adjustments being made, ensuring that both our staff and our students are okay and cared for, whether it be additional water, whether it be adjusting locations, whatever we need to do. So we're being mindful of that, adjusting some work practices in some areas that aren't air conditioned and those types of things. So that's all.
Okay. Now, before we get to have cake, we have some board recognition. I'm gonna do this backwards. District 1. So first recognition we have is for Mr. Kevin Charles for earning level 3 board mastery under the NISBA Board of Excellence Recognition Program. Kevin has received 250 points of leadership development. Congratulations, Kevin. NISBA. Next, we have level 4 Lifetime Achievement Award under the NISBA same Board of Excellence recognition for Ms. Rhonda Williams for totaling 500 points of development opportunities.
Thank you.
It seems how you're not retiring, we don't need to do this, right? And for your service to the Board of Education for 12 years. We got your plaque. I did not pick it out. We give credit for picking it out, Amy and Corey. But it says to honor your service to the Board of Education. Here's your gavel for being a past president listed. And thank you for everything you've done. Led us through good times and hard times, and here we are in good times again. So thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Thinking back when I first got on the board, seeing my 2 sons there, it's bittersweet, but my oldest is just graduating, and my youngest was in middle school. And here they are, adults, having a family, and their kids are now in school. So it's been bittersweet. It's hard to give up, but.
You gonna make me speak?
No.
Try.
Thank you, Mrs.
So let them
Wilson.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Rhonda.
Very much.
Oh, yeah.
It's been fun.
I'm trying to help you, man, I really am. Work with us, work with us.
I'm sorry.
You know me. Yes, thank you.
Yeah.
Definitely has been a challenging but yet rewarding time, and I am gonna miss it, but I think it's just time to move on, and one door closes, another one opens, so. And thank you, every single one of you, and, you know, the people in the past that has sat around this table with me, I really appreciate your dedication, you know, to the board. I really appreciate that, and I think the students and parents appreciate it too.
Well, I appreciate your dedication to talking about.
Thank you.
And I enjoyed working with all of you. And this is a proud moment for my life.
Thank you.
So in order to honor Rhonda, instead of having a break, I would suggest moving adjournment ahead of the break, and then our break could be permanent till July 2nd. Do I have that motion?
Yes.
Motion to adjourn?
Motion.
Do we have a second on that?
Second.
Motion second to adjourn. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Passed.